Some thoughts on what it means to be a musician in today's day and age. I can speak from personal experience. Everyone's different, obviously. We're in this mission together, globally. We live in very, very interesting times. And the amazing thing about the role of a musician has shifted throughout time, throughout history. And even since the beginning of recorded music, about 100 years ago, the role, the status, the compensation, the goals of a musician has shifted. It's constantly shifting. So a musician really has to be a shapeshifter, in a way. And there's a lot of external reasons why a person would want to be a musician or a person would want to be involved in music. But I think on some level, I would imagine that everybody has an intrinsic reason, has a deep connection from a very, very young age to music that really inspires them. And even if they get lost along the way and they get distracted by fame or money or other kinds of attention, other kinds of pleasures, expectations, that somewhere down there, somewhere in there is that deep connection, that deep inspiration, that you can't, when a child experiences joy in music, you can't attribute that, until they get older, you can attribute that to something external. It's just pure. There's something about music that delights us, that touches us very, very deeply. It's something I noticed as a street musician. When you play like in a subway station, you play on the street, which I've done over the years in various settings. Often you encounter people who don't even notice the musician playing. It's become part of the background. They're involved in their own thing. Most people are not aware of what's going on in their environment, and they just kind of breeze by and maybe see it as an annoyance if they notice it at all, or someone's trying to collect money or whatever. But almost invariably, when you have kids, and often it's an incredible contrast between the kids and the parents that are leading them by the hand. The kids will want to stop and hear the music. They get so excited. And the parents will be like, what are you stopping for? Like, let's keep going. Like, it's like they act like it's a dog who's getting distracted by a squirrel on a leash. Like, come on. And sometimes the parent will like stop with the child and get caught up. And then sometimes they'll just patiently wait for the child to, get distracted again. But this is similar to the experiments that were done. I think Joshua Bell, the great classical violinist, I know this has been done in different circumstances, who would play, I think it was in the Washington, D.C. subway. And, he's a world famous violinist. And he's playing just as incredibly down in the subway, but nobody's noticing. Most people are asleep. So to get back to that child mentality, this is what one of the things that is a primary musician's role, to help people connect to the present, to the moment, to the beauty of the moment. And that really is a really important role. And cutting through all the static of what it takes to be a musician, in terms of what's considered success. If a person, it's a really good thing to do some street music, or just to play music in settings that are not necessarily set up for you to play music. Because you see, if your music is resonating with children, you're onto something. If your music is not resonating with children, then you need to reconsider what you're doing, because children are very easy to delight, at least to catch their attention. Maybe to keep them absorbed for a period of time is more challenging, but certainly to capture their attention initially is relatively easy. And I say easy, it doesn't mean it's less valuable. It's just, a child will get delighted by just the sound of an out-of-tune guitar dropping on the floor. It sounds so amazing. That's the child's mind. So if a musician stays with that initial compass, then almost everything else that you add to that or comes out of that can kind of be seen in perspective. Our job is to connect people to the present, connect people to what it means to be truly alive. And sometimes that gives us great attention and great compensation, because it is an incredibly valuable thing that's recognized. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's taken for granted and it's neglected. So we really have to consider that in our musical journey, what that means to us, to stay in that place of delight and joy. As being dedicated to that, and beyond that, I think there's a level beyond that. Because childlike is a quality that you want to keep for your lifetime. But when that matures, there's even deeper levels that can reach. There's not any more pure levels than that. But there's certainly, a child delighting in playing an out-of-tune guitar is not going to hold the attention of an adult for a delighted adult for very long. So as our music gets more sophisticated, we want to retain that childlike joy and delight and presence. But we start to fold in a more mature and sophisticated awareness of what it takes to bring more people into the light, so to speak, more people into the present. And how does that? And that takes insight, that takes study, that takes reflection. And I think that the best musicians have been able to do that. They've been able to cut through all the noise to unapologetically express their music in a way that just captures people and doesn't take, I'm not interested for an answer. It controls and seduces a listener. It has an undeniable quality. The best music has an undeniable quality. That's something that's clear. And even if people aren't paying attention, or even if it's going to get its share of critics who aren't really listening, to put it down on one grounds or another. But as an artist, if you understand that your music is coming from a very deep and pure place, and it's really speaking in the now. And for everybody that's different. Every musician has their own way of doing that. But once you tap into that, then no matter what the adversity, no matter what kind of critique you get, what kind of obstacles that you encounter, what kind of ignoring you get, which is something to contend with nowadays, especially with such an overwhelming glut of music out there. It's so easy to feel completely lost in the void and completely ignored, which is something I think really, and part of my journey is addressing that at this moment in time. But even before addressing that issue, even if you're being ignored, but that doesn't matter, because you're the child delighting in the out-of-tune guitar, then you're already somewhere really successful. And that's a place to be. That's a real place to be. And to revisit that, and to learn new music from that place, and to share your music from that place. And as we mature as musicians, to share it with an expertise that delights on multiple levels, intellectual levels, physical levels, with the groove, with words or melodies that capture the mind and the imagination. We can address all these things, expressing that purity of presence. So, it's at the stage that I am personally at this point. It's almost coming on 50 years old. I've been told I don't look good, except for the gray maybe. I don't feel 50. But I feel great and I feel young. But that there is that lie. I think it's a lie, but it can be a self-manifesting truth that you can get too old to rock and roll. Let's say, to to do something groundbreaking and new. I see all these theories. The best musicians make the best music at the age 20, in their 20s, and then it's downhill from there. So maybe you can bring a bunch of examples for great musicians who did their best work in their 20s. But I've seen plenty of exceptions to that as well. So you don't have to be hemmed in by anyone's conception of what is success, what is possible for you. And that's kind of the mode where I'm operating from. I have this YouTube channel, sharing my music. I have this idea of sharing it far and wide. But I realize also that it still needs to be developed. It's a constant process of reiteration and reinvention and focus. I have a lot of different insights from Torah specifically, but I gained from mentors of different stripes and certainly from the musicians I'm inspired by to find my particular path. As a teenager, which is now we're talking about 35 years ago almost, when I picked up playing piano, as I spoke about in the last video. I had so much to work through. I had so many personal things to work through, and I'd say it took. And this might sound so much younger. I don't think it's going to take you this long, but this is what it took me. It took me these 34, 35 years to get to a point where I really feel like I can start playing music from my heart freely. And there's still many changes in that. And it's, in some ways, I avoid the negative thinking, like, oh, what if only I'd done that or only done that. I did what I did. Things happened the way they happened. For me, it's a challenge now. Thank God I have a home full of children. Thank God. It's such a blessing. And, Bach comes to mind as someone who created the best music with more children than I have. Thank God I have a wonderful wife, wonderful children. With that, of course, comes a lot of responsibilities. So as a musician, as any person, it's easy to. I've seen plenty of artistically minded people who have a value, who know that the deepest meaning in life, whether they're in the Torah or come from the Torah world or not, they understand that the deepest meaning in life comes from your children and your family and having a meaningful relationship, being a giver, being a provider. It's a really important value. And it's not an easy path to tread to say, well, I'm going to do that and I'm going to remain in a creative space that can try new things and be reinventing myself and having, let's just face it, not a clear regular income. For years I've went back and forth that I see plenty of people give up their creative dreams. They give up their creative flow to live a life of quiet desperation, frankly. As Pink Floyd says this. I know that quote comes from somewhere else, but this idea of like, well, it's a very admirable thing for a person to make it as a high priority, to take care of their family, to be a giver, and that is someone I admire in many ways much more. And even if they've given up their creative dreams, which I find very tragic, I find much more admirable than someone who completely avoids that path, who doesn't have children, who doesn't get married, because they just want what's in it for them. It's a much more limited life. A person cannot actually. It's a basic Torah teaching that a person is only half a person until they get married. You're only half a human being. That might be. It's a difficult teaching for someone who's not married, for someone who's having a hard time getting married or keeping a marriage alive. But it takes a lot of work. But that's basic Torah truth. Your true nature, your true abilities come out when you become married, when you start having children, when you have someone really to care for and provide for, and share things with in a deep way. So that's then a person, let's say, who pursues their creative dreams and avoids that. Is very limited. They're very limited in what kind of message they can bring to the world. Obviously, everyone's different. I'm sure there may be exceptions to incredible musicians who never got married, etc., or weren't successful in their relationships. But I don't think we have to. It's not a binary thing. My point is that, and I haven't seen it happen many times. But because it seems to be a great exception to make music that's transcendent and that's groundbreaking and that's paradigm changing, but also to be a provider. And why is that not possible? I believe it's possible. That's the mode I'm in. Have I seen the external success raining down? Not yet. But am I working on that as that is the ideal? And I'm not, as I have in the past, taking full-time jobs and full-time teaching, which doesn't leave much time and headspace for music in order to provide for my family, which anyway doesn't make enough to cover all the bills anyway. So, but then doesn't leave the time for music. So now, for right now, I teach part-time. I teach half a day. I find that very rewarding. And then the rest of the time, I devote to music, building this YouTube channel, practicing my instrument, writing music, recording music. I have a big dream. And in the meantime, God provides. Hashem provides. Exactly how that happens, it's miraculous. It's miraculous all the time. Would be nice to have some extra cash. Would be very nice. Is it possible to go and ask, especially in the Jewish community? There are plenty of resources a person can go and ask for money, but that, my wife and I both agreed that we're avoiding that. You could do it. We could go out, and not everybody has that resource. But there's government programs, and then there's community programs. There's ways. There's family who could help and would be happy to help. And if a person really needs it, I don't disparage that at all. But if the person is in a mode, they want to be a giver. You want to not a taker. Then I think a little bit for me and for my wife also, we're in a belt tightening stage. But it's the most joyful stage I've ever been. And it's not just taking a job for cash. Though I do things to bring in cash, but there are things that are particularly geared. They're not going to drain my soul. They're not going to take away. They're not going to take up all my time and headspace, so I don't have room for music. There are things that leave room for music, and so that's a consideration. It's a real consideration. And thank God I have a very supportive wife, and not everybody has that. But also I think just knowing, I think sometimes you get a supportive wife through declaring clearly and consistently that this is what I do. This is I understand I'm unique in that way. My wife is very unique in that way. But at the same time, I think if a person, when there's a will, there's a way. When a person says that this is what I do, and they have an understanding spouse, they can make it work. We don't have to give up our dreams. On the contrary, we can make it all work. So that's my message for today. Stick with it. Stick with your dreams. Be the responsible provider that you can be the best you can. But that doesn't have to mean, that shouldn't mean, especially in the times of the redemption right now that we're in, the times of Mashiach, that Kol Ma'adin Nitzam Ka'afar. As Maimonides says, that all the sweet things we found like dust will be taken care of. We're already being taken care of. You don't have to worry even a bit. You put the effort in. We trust Hashem to take care of us. Hashem trusts that we're going to do the things that we need to do. And it's a perfect relationship. So God bless you all. So if you wanted to be in touch with me, please, in the description, you can go to my website, YisraelAryeh.com. Leave some comments, let me know what's on your mind. And let's build a community of musicians who are transforming the world without fear, with a high level of good values, and building something really, really special, really amazing in this amazing new world we're living in. Thank you for listening.